Sometimes the loudest statement you can make is silence. Sometimes the most powerful move you can play is no move at all. People think your presence is power, but watch how they act when you're gone. That's when the truth comes out. That's when your value gets exposed. When you are in the room, people know how to act. They know how to adjust their words, their tone, their energy, because they see you standing right there. Presence alone can shape behavior. You can see smiles, nods, handshakes, and words of agreement, but the real truth about how someone feels toward you is never tested while you are present. Respect is not proven in the light of your presence, it is proven in the shadows of your absence. When you leave the room, that is when the masks start to fall. That is when people reveal if they truly respected you or if it was only surface level. Think about it this way: when you are standing over someone, they will rarely talk against you. But the moment you step out, if the conversations flip, if your name is mentioned with negativity, you are seeing the real reflection of how they view you. Absence exposes the layers that presence can hide. It is easy for people to applaud you when you are watching. It is easy for people to clap when you are performing. But when you are not there, the test begins. Do they still applaud your work in private, or do they dismiss it once you are gone? That is the measurement of respect. Absence has a way of stripping away the performance. Human beings have always been performers in a sense. We show certain versions of ourselves when it benefits us. When a person of influence or value is near, many people shift into character. They want to be seen in a good light. They want to appear supportive. Yet real loyalty, real admiration, and real love only show themselves when there is nothing to gain, no eyes watching, no reward in sight. That is the sacred test of absence. You can learn a lot about the people around you by not being there. Leave the circle and listen later to what was said. Step out of the group and see who checks in with you when you are not physically present. The reactions reveal the truth. It is almost like removing the stage lights in a performance hall. Suddenly the actors stop acting and you see the real expressions, the real character, and the real intentions. This is why absence is one of the greatest tools for understanding who deserves your energy. If you only measure respect by what you see when you are standing in the room, you will be fooled. But if you allow absence to do its work, if you allow space to reveal truth, you will never be deceived by surface respect again. It is not about being paranoid or constantly suspicious. It is about valuing yourself enough to test the loyalty around you, not through confrontation, but through quiet observation of what happens when you are not there. The beauty of absence is that it does not just reveal the negative, it also highlights the positive. Think of the people who continue to speak well of you when you are not there. Think of the people who defend your name, who hold you down, who carry your principles into conversations where you are not present. That is respect in its purest form. That is how you know someone values you beyond performance. Respect that lives in your absence is the respect that will carry your legacy. Now, presence can be borrowed, but absence reveals impact. Anyone can show up to a place, shake hands, smile for the camera, and appear significant. Presence can create the illusion of value. You can walk into a room and people notice you simply because you are there, but that does not mean they truly feel your importance. Presence is immediate, it demands attention in the moment, but once you leave, presence disappears. The question then becomes what is left behind. Absence is where impact is measured. If people forget about you the moment you leave, then your presence was surface level. But if your absence lingers, if your energy is missed, if conversations feel different without you, that is when you know you carried real weight. Your absence is like a shadow that stretches beyond the room, reminding people of what you brought. This is why true influence is never just about showing up. Anyone can show up. True influence is about leaving something behind that continues to speak after you have walked out the door. Think about music. An artist records a song one time in the studio. That is presence. But long after they leave, the song plays, the lyrics echo, the message impacts lives. That is absence revealing impact. The moment of creation ends, but the influence keeps moving. In relationships, this principle is just as clear. There are people who love your presence, but the real test is how they feel when you are not around. Do they still carry your lessons, your words, your energy, even in your absence? Do they value the connection when it is not convenient, or do they only respond when you are physically close? Absence exposes whether your presence was truly appreciated or simply taken for granted. Many times in life, we confuse being busy with being valuable. We think showing up everywhere is what proves our worth. We think being present constantly is how people will remember us. But presence without substance fades quickly. If you are always available, if you never step back, your presence becomes normal, expected, even overlooked. Absence, however, creates space for appreciation. When you remove yourself, people suddenly notice the difference. They feel the gap. They recognize the impact you had because it is missing. Consider leaders who have passed away. Their absence often speaks louder than their presence ever did. People begin to reflect, to replay words, to value teachings they once overlooked. The absence makes the lessons echo louder. The impact becomes undeniable. Presence may inspire in the moment, but absence builds legacy. Absence is also a mirror for self-reflection. When you step away from certain places, projects, or relationships, you start to see where your true value was. If things collapse when you leave, your role was crucial. If they continue without missing a beat, maybe your energy was never truly needed there. That truth can sting, but it also empowers you. It allows you to invest yourself where your absence will be felt, where your energy truly shifts the room. Presence can be borrowed because anyone can take up space. Absence cannot be faked. It reveals truth in ways presence never could. When people miss you, when they talk about you in your absence, when they carry your lessons beyond your physical presence, that is when you know you left impact. That is when you know your presence was more than just a moment, it was a movement. So understand this clearly. Respect is tested not when you are there, but when you are not. Impact is proven not in the moment you show up, but in the silence that follows after you leave. If you want to measure the true weight of your presence, stop watching the crowd when you are on stage and start listening to the whispers when you step away. Your absence will always tell the story your presence could never reveal. Absence creates space for value to multiply. It works like supply and demand. When something is always available, people get comfortable with it, and comfort often leads to taking things for granted. When you are always around, always answering, always showing up, people begin to treat your presence like it is unlimited. They stop realizing how much you actually bring because it has become their normal. But the moment you pull back, the moment you are no longer instantly accessible, something powerful happens. People begin to notice the void. They begin to remember what it felt like when you were present, and that memory makes them appreciate your energy at a higher level. Think about the most valuable resources in the world. They are valuable because they are not easily found everywhere. Rarity creates worth. The same applies to you. When you learn to give your presence with intention, when you are not constantly available to everyone at any time, you train people to value the moments they do get with you. Your words become heavier, your time becomes more precious, your presence becomes a privilege instead of a routine. This is not about arrogance, it is about balance. It is about protecting your energy and allowing others to truly understand what you contribute. Consider how people react when a mentor, leader, or loved one is not around as often. Suddenly, every conversation they had with that person becomes more meaningful. Every lesson begins to echo. People replay the advice. They rethink the guidance. They realize the depth of what they were given. Absence has a way of magnifying your value because it forces people to hold on to what you left behind. They are no longer distracted by constant presence, so they reflect on the essence of what you delivered. There is also a lesson here about time and energy. If you are always available, you leave no room for growth in others. Sometimes pulling back allows people to step up, to take responsibility, to learn independence. Absence is not just about making people appreciate you more. It is also about creating space for them to grow. In your absence, they may struggle, but that struggle is what teaches them strength. That is when they realize how much your presence guided them. The appreciation grows because they feel the difference when you are no longer filling the gap. Absence also sharpens your own value. When you create distance, you can step back and analyze who truly respects what you bring. You get to see who reaches out, who still seeks your wisdom, who makes the effort to connect even when you are not present. The ones who chase consistency even in your absence are the ones who understand your worth. The ones who disappear when you disappear only value the convenience of your presence, not the depth of your contribution. This understanding allows you to pour into the right places instead of wasting energy where it is not truly appreciated. Just like scarcity increases demand, your absence can increase the weight of your voice and the importance of your presence. The key is to use it wisely. Too much absence can disconnect you completely, but the right amount creates balance. It builds anticipation for your presence and reminds people not to take you lightly. In a world where everyone is constantly online, constantly visible, constantly pushing for attention, the ability to step back and let absence speak is a form of power. It separates you from the noise and makes your presence something that people look forward to rather than overlook. Absence also separates the real from the fake. When you are always around, it is hard to tell who is genuine and who is simply comfortable with the convenience of your presence. People will smile, they will talk, they will act like they support you, but it is only when you step back that the truth becomes clear. Watch who continues to carry your name when you are not there. Watch who still stands behind your work, who still repeats your principles, who still promotes your vision even without your physical presence. Those are the ones who are real. The fake ones fade quickly once you are not there to benefit them. They stop calling, they stop checking in, they stop bringing up your name because their loyalty was never about you. It was about what you could give them in the moment. Absence is a filter. It separates those who are only interested in presence from those who are invested in essence. It clears away the noise so you can see clearly who belongs with you on the long road ahead. There is a difference between someone who loves what you do and someone who loves who you are. Absence exposes that difference. If they only value you when you are standing in front of them, it is surface level. If they still value you when you are not around, when you are silent, when you are focused on your own growth, then it runs deeper. Those people are connected to you, not just your presence. Think about how people act when a leader steps away from an organization for a while. The true supporters keep the mission alive. They keep repeating the message, they keep the work moving, they carry the same spirit. The fake supporters start complaining, blaming, or drifting away because they were only there for convenience. That same principle applies in every area of life, from friendships to business to family. Absence uncovers the foundation of every connection. It is important to pay attention to the ones who remain consistent even when you are not around. These are the people who deserve your trust, your time, and your energy. They are not waiting for your presence to validate their loyalty. They are loyal regardless. Absence shows you the difference between a crowd and a circle, between followers and believers, between people who are just there for the moment and people who are there for the journey. Sometimes you do not even have to test this intentionally. Life will test it for you. There will be times when you cannot be present everywhere. You cannot always show up. You cannot always give your energy. Those natural absences will reveal the truth about people faster than anything else. Watch carefully because the results are valuable. Absence will teach you who is real without you ever needing to ask. The reason absence is such a powerful tool is because it requires no words, no confrontation, no explanation. You do not need to call someone out or demand answers. All you have to do is step back and let silence reveal what presence was covering. The reaction will tell you everything. Real supporters do not need you there to be consistent. Fake ones cannot last without you standing beside them. So absence becomes a form of protection. It protects your energy by removing those who only want access without appreciation. It protects your vision by revealing who is truly aligned with it. It protects your time by showing you where not to invest. In a world full of noise, presence can be deceiving, but absence tells the truth. When you learn to trust what absence reveals, you put yourself in a position of strength, because you are no longer fooled by appearances. You are guided by reality, and reality always serves those who pay attention. If you live with principles that are real, your presence teaches even when you never open your mouth. People watch how you move, how you carry yourself, how you treat others, and that alone becomes a lesson. But the deeper truth is that your absence teaches just as much, sometimes even more. When you are no longer there physically, what remains is the memory of your energy, the conversations you had, and the example you left behind. Those lessons echo in people's minds long after you are gone. It is like a book that was read once but continues to influence the reader over and over again. Presence starts the teaching, but absence extends it. Think about the mentors, leaders, or loved ones who impacted you. In their presence, you may have felt inspired, motivated, or guided. But in their absence, that inspiration either faded or grew stronger depending on how deeply they touched you. The lessons they taught you became your own when they were no longer there to remind you every day. That is the power of absence. It forces people to internalize what they have learned instead of leaning on constant reminders. Your absence is a mirror that shows whether your presence left anything of substance. The way you live, the way you build your character, and the way you hold yourself accountable leaves a trail that others can follow even when you are not there to point the way. A true example does not need constant presence to remain alive. It is carried forward because it has weight. If your absence leaves people talking about how you carried yourself, if it makes them repeat your values or adopt your mindset, then you have already achieved something lasting. That is legacy at work. Absence also teaches responsibility. When you are always around, people may depend on you for everything. They might lean on you so much that they never learn to walk on their own. When you are absent, they are forced to stand up and apply the lessons you gave them. Your absence becomes their training ground. It tests whether they really listened, whether they really absorbed, whether they really valued what you brought. In that space, people either rise or they fall. Either way, the lesson is revealed. This is why absence carries weight. Your absence can remind people of the strength you provided. It can highlight the wisdom you once spoke. It can make others step into their own power because you are no longer holding everything together for them. That is how your energy continues to teach long after you have stepped away. You might think that being physically gone means your influence is gone too. But in reality, if you have lived with integrity and purpose, your absence becomes a classroom where your lessons continue to be taught. Absence also strengthens memory. People replay the times they had with you and start realizing details they overlooked before. They might remember one small phrase you said or the way you handled a situation, and that memory becomes their guide in your absence. The absence allows people to slow down and reflect, and that reflection often creates stronger learning than presence ever could. Presence can inspire in the moment, but absence allows that inspiration to grow roots inside someone. Sometimes distance is the ultimate power move. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen and heard constantly, stepping back is a strategy that shifts the game. Distance does not always mean weakness. In fact, it often means strength, discipline, and foresight. When you pull back, you are telling the world that your energy is not up for casual use. You are signaling that your time, your focus, and your presence are valuable and not something to be consumed endlessly. Distance places a higher price on your presence. Stepping back also gives you clarity. When you are always in the middle of noise, always surrounded by people, always responding, it becomes difficult to see the bigger picture. Distance creates silence, and silence creates vision. You begin to see things for what they are. You start to notice who was genuinely connected to you and who was only there for convenience. By pulling away, you force yourself into reflection, and that reflection is often where the smartest decisions are made. Distance protects your energy. Not everyone deserves constant access to you. If you make yourself available to everyone at all times, you drain yourself and weaken your value. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to remove yourself, not because you do not care, but because you care about your growth and the protection of your purpose. By creating distance, you are controlling the terms of your presence instead of letting others control it for you. There is also another side to distance. It is not only about what it gives you, but also about what it demands from others. When you are always there, people never have to ask themselves what they would do without you. But when you are distant, when you are not immediately reachable, they are forced to rise, to act, to contribute in ways they never did before. Your distance can make them grow because it removes the comfort of relying on you for everything. Distance also reveals truth. The ones who are truly loyal, the ones who are truly connected will not disappear just because you created space. They will still check on you, they will still support you. They will still carry your name even without daily presence. The ones who fade away were only around for convenience. Distance gives you the sharpest insight into who really belongs in your life and your journey. Sometimes distance is not about others at all, but about you choosing peace over pressure. It is about pulling away to recharge, to think, to plan, to build without distraction. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life happen when you are not in the crowd, but when you are alone with your thoughts. Distance can be where you discover the next step that changes everything, so understand that choosing distance is not running away. It is not surrender, it is strategy. It is a way of multiplying your value, a way of protecting your peace, a way of demanding respect without ever saying a word. In fact, distance often commands more respect than presence because it proves that you do not need to be everywhere to be felt. It shows that your energy holds weight even in silence. That is the kind of power that cannot be faked, and that is the kind of power that only distance can create. There will always be moments in life where silence carries more strength than words. Your energy does not only live in what you say, but in how you choose to move. When you carry yourself with intention, people notice even when you are not trying to be noticed. That is the quiet power of presence. But the deeper power lies in how silence works when you decide not to explain yourself, when you choose not to respond to negativity, when you let your work and your results do the talking. In those moments, your silence speaks volumes. It teaches people that you are not controlled by outside noise, that your focus is bigger than their distractions, that your growth does not need their validation. Silence is a language, and those who are paying attention will hear it loud and clear. Think about how often people waste energy defending themselves, proving themselves, or trying to convince others of their worth. The louder you argue, the more you give away your power. But when you choose silence, you flip the situation. You let time reveal the truth instead of wasting breath trying to force it. The most disciplined people understand this. They know that silence is not weakness but discipline. It is a decision to place value on your energy rather than throwing it at people who were never going to understand it anyway. Silence also gives you leverage. When you stop talking, others start wondering. When you stop showing up to every conversation, your presence begins to gain weight because people notice the difference. They start asking why you are quiet, why you step back, why you are no longer as available. That curiosity makes them reflect, and in that reflection, your influence grows. Silence positions you as someone who moves with strategy instead of impulse, and strategy always outlasts noise. Another layer to silence is how it forces people to face themselves. When you stop responding to disrespect, the other person is left to sit with their own words. When you do not match negative energy with more negativity, they are forced to see their behavior clearly. Your silence becomes their mirror. Many times, the greatest lessons you give are not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. By refusing to play the same game, you change the rules entirely. Silence also creates space for self-control. It teaches you not to let every emotion control your tongue. The moment you realize not every situation deserves a response, you start to master your emotions instead of letting your emotions master you. That mastery builds respect. People begin to see that you are not easily shaken, that you are not quick to lose yourself, that you hold a level of composure they cannot break, and respect often grows more from composure than from constant reaction. On the other side of silence is distance, and distance can be the sharpest teacher. When you create distance from certain people or environments, you are showing where your priorities lie. You are making a statement without speaking. People may not understand it at first, but over time they feel it. They feel the lack of your energy, the absence of your voice, the space you once filled. That is when they start to reflect on what you meant to them. That is when lessons begin to sink in. Distance has the ability to make your presence stronger than it ever was before because it gives people contrast. They experience life with you and then they experience life without you. The difference teaches them more than any speech ever could. Distance is also a way of protecting your energy. When you step back, you give yourself time to breathe, to think, to heal, to grow. Not every battle deserves your presence. Not every room deserves your energy. Sometimes stepping away is the smartest thing you can do because it allows you to focus on what truly matters instead of being drained by what is not. This is not running from responsibility. It is choosing your battles wisely and conserving your energy for the places where it will create the most impact. When you choose distance, you also choose clarity. Being too close to a situation can blur your vision. Emotions get involved, pressure clouds judgment, and you cannot see things clearly. But when you step back, when you give yourself distance, perspective returns. You start to notice what really matters, who really matters, and where you should be headed. That clarity gives you strength because it guides your next move with precision. Distance also demands respect. When you are always around, people get used to you. They take you for granted. They expect you to be there no matter what. But when you step back, they are reminded that your presence is not guaranteed. That reminder shifts how they treat you. They begin to value your time more. They begin to appreciate your contributions more. They begin to recognize that you are not someone who can be accessed endlessly. Distance sets boundaries, and boundaries create respect. There is also growth in distance. When you step away from certain environments or relationships, you give yourself room to evolve. You are no longer stuck in patterns that hold you back. You can explore new opportunities, discover new strengths, and build new skills. Distance opens doors that constant presence keeps closed. It allows you to elevate yourself, and when you return stronger, wiser, and more impactful. The people who are meant for you will still be there when you create distance. They will not fade away just because you pulled back. They will understand that your distance is not rejection but evolution. The ones who disappear were never truly invested in you. They were only invested in what you gave them. Distance reveals this truth clearly. It shows you who is real without you ever needing to ask. Silence and distance together create a powerful combination. Silence keeps you from wasting energy on the wrong things, while distance protects you from being consumed by the wrong environments. Both teach lessons, both demand respect, and both allow you to grow stronger without having to constantly prove yourself. When you master them, you realize that sometimes the most powerful moves are the ones that do not require words or constant presence. Sometimes stepping back and saying nothing at all is what leaves the deepest impact. At the end of the day, the weight of your presence will always be measured by the echo of your absence. If your absence teaches, if it reveals truth, if it forces growth, then you are building something that lasts beyond the moment. Distance is not weakness, it is wisdom. Absence is not loss, it is legacy. Your silence, your space, and your pullback can carry more meaning than being in the room every single time. Value your energy enough to protect it, trust absence enough to test it, and use distance as a tool to multiply your impact. Thank you for giving your time and attention. I appreciate every single one of you watching, listening, and applying these words in your own journey. Keep growing, keep building, and keep pushing for your highest potential.